What is going on, YouTube and Diablo fans? My name's Andreas, and as always, welcome back to Mana and Motherboards. Today we are looking at the Echoing Strike Warlock, and we are going to be explaining to you and sort of working through the Echoing Strike Warlock with you to make the ultimate build guide for your end game best in slot Echoing Strike Warlock. So I definitely think you are going to want to stick around for this one, and it's definitely going to have a lot of good tips and tricks for anyone looking to optimize their Echoing Strike Warlock. And this video is also going to serve as a little bit of a follow-up to my Obsession is the best in slot weapon video for the Echoing Strike Warlock, and that video I think has garnered quite a bit of enthusiasm from the community on both sides of the fence, being people who are for it and people who are against it. Now, this build video and this guide is going to be focused a lot around Obsession because it's such a pivotal piece of the gear for this build. So let's just begin with the gear in order to give you an idea of what is best in slot, what is going to give you the best bang for your buck, and what is going to be the most impactful for the Echoing Strike Warlock. So when we start with gear, I think working around what weapon you're going to use is very important if your weapon is pivotal to the build, such as Obsession is for the Echoing Strike Warlock. Now, I'm going to respec the Warlock, or this Warlock that I have in particular. As you can see here, I have 281 points in strength. I have 156 base, and then the rest is from gear. And what I'm going to be working towards is a no strength build, so there's going to be no points into strength, and we'll get to that in a second. And we are going to have tons of vitality, tons of life, and tons of toughness. So getting back to the gear, as I mentioned, Obsession will be our weapon, and I will link the video to why I chose Obsession in particular for this build. And just to run you through it quickly, the 4 to all skills is massive, especially with the skill scaling for Echoing Strike. When we put skills into Echoing Strike, it gains a massive amount of enhanced damage as well as flat damage. So when we look at Obsession, those 4 skills are vital to gaining big damage and big utility with this build, as well as that massive 65% faster cast rate, which you can't get more than that in any weapon that you throw in the slot. Then you get the 60% faster hit recovery, which helps us hit our 86 or 89 breakpoint that we are going for. And we've got the energy, the Vite, that increase maximum life 18%. It can roll up to 25%, and we have that 67 to all resist. So most of our resist is coming from this Obsession staff. In a way, Obsession is our armor, our offense, our weapon. It's everything all in one. That hit recovery, cast rate, skills, it's all res, it's magic find, it's got every stat you could possibly want all rolled into one weapon. And based off of cast speed, which Echoing Strike is, the attack speed of the weapon doesn't matter, and this is just such a solid option, and it importantly opens up all of our other gear slots for other items that can benefit this build. So yes, you could go for something like an Ariok's Needle, an Eth1 that has 4 skills, and that will give you super high damage, or you could go for an Ethereal Breath of the Dying Thunder Maul or War Pike. It'll be incredible damage. A Fortitude Thunder Maul, the Eth1, will also be incredible damage, but none of those give you all the utility that Obsession does, and Obsession can give you 90% of the kill speed with better utility than those items that I have mentioned. So everything is hinging and pivoting around Obsession for this build. So let's just move on from there and we'll come back to it, but I just want to show you a bit of the other gear. So because we are using Obsession and it is giving us so many of the stats we need in order to reach the breakpoints we want, which are the 86 or 89, I can't remember exactly, faster hit recovery breakpoint for this build. If you have a look here, we are sitting at 90, I think it is. Yeah, 90 faster hit recovery, which is just above our breakpoint, and that keeps us comfortably there. That is between Obsession and Ars Dul Mephistos. That gives us our 90 faster hit recovery that we want. Then, moving on from the faster hit recovery, what we want to do is hit the 125 faster cast rate breakpoint. And this breakpoint, as you can see here, we have 127 faster cast rate. This breakpoint just makes the build feel so much smoother. You are attacking at a very fast, very comfortable rate that gives you a good amount of damage, allows you to hit monsters and put them into hit recovery themselves as quickly as possible. It gives you great leeching because of your attack rate, and it is just a really great breakpoint for teleporting and mobility and moving around. And that teleporting can be both defensive and offensive when you're telestomping mobs and taking them down, as well as when you just want to move around and dodge things and also just get around the map very quickly. So we have our 65% faster cast rate from our Obsession. We are going to be using Arachnid Mesh because of that one-to-all skills that scales with our Echoing Strike very well in terms of damage, and also just giving one-to-all skills to all of our other 1-point wonders and other skills that we are using, because this build does use quite a lot of different skills. Anything with plus to all skills or plus to Warlock skills is vitally important for this build. So Arachnid Mesh is best in slot for the Bolt slot because of that one-to-all skills and that faster cast rate. It also slows target, which is very useful, and it's just in general a great bolt and the best in slot for this Echoing Strike build. So we get 65 cast rate from Obsession plus 20 from Arachnid Mesh. That puts us at 85. Then we're using an Ars Dul Mephistos, and this item is great for a few reasons. And if we add the faster cast rate from this, it ranges between 20 to 30. So I have a 22 faster cast rate version of this, and the setup that I have at the moment would be ideal with a 30 faster cast rate Ars Dul, but at the moment those are extremely expensive, and I just actually found this one and it rolled well enough for my use case, so I decided to use it. But a 30 faster cast rate would be perfect there. So if we had this 22% faster cast rate to our other cast rate items, we are now sitting at 107% faster cast rate. So to get that extra 20%, I'm using 2 rings, a life leech on the one side as well as a mana leech on the other side, and this gives us that extra or needed required 20% faster cast rate to reach that 125 faster cast rate. So ideally what I would do here is have a 30% of Ars Dul Mephistos, sorry, I keep on pronouncing that incorrectly, Ars Dul Mephistos, very weird name to be saying, something to get used to. So what I would do is have a 30% Ars Dul Mephistos here, and then 1 faster cast rate ring that has mana leech, and then a Bull Kathos ring with life leech on the other ring slot. And that would give me my dual leech between the 2 rings. It would let me hit my 125 faster cast rate breakpoint, and it would give me the best of both worlds in having that extra skill that BK provides, as well as the life leech. So that is how we reach our 125% faster cast rate, and that is incredibly important for this build, and I think by far feels the best with Echoing Strike. Yes, you can reach that 75% breakpoint, and it does work, but it doesn't feel quite as smooth, as buttery, and just as dynamically exciting as that 125% breakpoint, and I feel like once you've played on that 125% breakpoint, you do not want to go back. So that covers faster cast rate for our gear and our sort of itemization here, and why we chose to do it the way we did is so that we can run Laying of Hands as our glove slot. And that is because that 350% damage to demons is a massive amount of damage, even though it's added to a particular bucket of damage, which is your offhand enhanced damage. It is still an incredibly large amount of damage to demons, so it will be great against Ubers, great against act bosses, and great against at least 50% of the other mobs you are fighting, as well as having that 50% fire res. It's just a unbeatable item for this particular glove slot. I think, yes, you could use a Trang'ul's gloves and get that 50 cold res and that 20 FCR, but then you're losing so much damage that you can't necessarily make up in other slots, similarly to using this Laying of Hands gloves. And I think that working around getting these in this slot is definitely worthwhile and makes a massive difference to your gameplay. So Laying of Hands, I reckon, is best in slot for this build. I think you could use Soul Drainers in order to open up skill rings for your ring slots, or any other great faster cast rate rings or something like that. But then you need a 220 Amulet or a 220 Helm, something like that, which I don't think is worth it. And I also don't think Steel Rend or Lava Gout or any of that is actually worth swapping the rest of your gear out. So by using Obsession and the other gear slots that I mentioned, you are able to use Laying of Hands, which is really great and again a pivotal piece for this build. Now, using Laying of Hands here is great, and Gore Riders, I think, as a boot option really complements the build because of its Deadly Strike, and because we aren't stacking Deadly Strike on the weapon because of using Obsession. This is a great place to get your extra Deadly Strike. You could also use those new boots if they rolled with a 1 to Eldritch skills, but I think that Gore Riders just offer you a bit more in terms of that Deadly Strike, and getting your Deadly Strike to that 50% point to get it as often as possible in conjunction with your High Lords. So High Lords, again, 1 to all skills, like I mentioned, is important to every aspect of your build, and that's why we are using High Lords, as well as that Deadly Strike it provides based on character level, as well as that Lightning Res, which is always welcome. And then Shaker, I just think, is so great for so many reasons. It's every stat on here is incredibly useful and incredibly important to this build, and I think that for an all-rounder, which is the point of this ultimate Echoing Strike build guide, is being good in every aspect and every form of content in the game, not to just excel at damage and not to just excel at survivability or magic find or anything like that. This is the ultimate all-rounder for Echoing Strike, and I think this helmet, Harlequin Crest Shaker, fits the bill for that perfectly. It is the ultimate all-rounder helm. So using Shaker in the helm slot, High Lords as your Amulet, that combined with Gore Riders to get your 50% Deadly Strike or close enough, and those items together, I think, form the basis of what is the ultimate all-round version of Echoing Strike. And the Ars Dul Mephistos is just so incredibly powerful, just coming back to that, because of the Warlock skills, the cast rate, the hit recovery, the enhanced damage. The minus enemy magic resistance can be useful in certain cases if you are maxing Hex Bane. Right now it's not important, but it also gives you that magic find, and socketed with an arm will also give you resist. So similarly to Obsession, it is a massive block of text, of utility and great stats for your build. I think over and above a Spirit Shield, which firstly requires more strength, so it takes from your vitality pool that you're putting your stats into, it also doesn't have the magic find that Ars Dul has. It also doesn't have that enhanced damage that Ars Dul has, which is very important to this build. I think an all-round item, it is just a little bit more exciting and offers a little bit more versatility and stats than a Spirit Shield does. Now, yes, I think the 30% one is required for the ultimate version of this build, and that being 30% faster cast rate. But when you get that item in slot, then you will reap all of the rewards and benefits, and it still works very well even with a lower rolled faster cast rate of 22% here. So that is all the gear slots. On swap, we will have a call to arms, which we will be rolling together very soon now, and a lidless wall because of the strength requirements. So again, a CTA is just par for the course for almost every build. It gives you that extra skill and that extra life and mana boost, and is absolutely crucial to min-max and get the most out of your character. So those are the items. I think if we just had to look at the perfect ideal ultimate all-round setup right now, so what that would be is a Bull Kathos ring on the one ring slot here. It would be a faster cast rate mana leech ring with some res, some life, some strength. That could be great on your other ring slot. And then a 30% faster cast rate Ars Dul Mephistos. All of that combined with Gore Riders, Enigma, Harlequin Crest Shaker, Obsession, Laying of Hands, and High Lord's Wrath. I think that is your ultimate setup for your best all-rounder Echoing Strike Warlock. And sorry, I didn't even mention the armor being Enigma, and we'll quickly run through that, but it's very self-explanatory. The extra skills, absolutely fantastic. The faster run walk, the teleport, that is what you get Enigma for. It is the best for mobility in terms of offense and defense. The strength it gives you, which we'll get to in a second, is very important. Increase maximum life, which goes with the maximum life increase on Obsession. Physical damage reduction, life after each kill, damage taken goes to mana, and that fat roll of MF there. So Enigma is just best. Every stat on this armor is useful and important, and combined with everything else, it just ties this whole build together, and it is as pivotal, if not more, than Obsession itself. I would go for Enigma as your first item to invest in over any of the others. So that wraps up our gear selection for this build, and just before we move on, I just want to show you the charm selection. So because we open up so much in terms of resistances and stats from Obsession and our Ars Dul Mephistos once we put a in it, all of that stuff, it allows us to run an inventory of skillers, and I could add another third one if I wanted, or a bone break, what is it called now, renewed Sundered Charm. So a renewed Sundered Charm bone break would go in this area over here. Then you would have your Eldritch skillers. If they had life on it, that would be fantastic, but at the moment these are perfectly fine for the use, but for your ultimate endgame, life would be great on there. And then I also have a Geed's Grand Charm. So I actually found 2 of these skillers myself and then just bought the other 3. Bought as in traded. And then for the torch, I've got a 1814 Warlock torch. Very cool here. I traded for that, and I wanted to find one myself, but I just got a bit impatient and really wanted to respec, which meant I needed this. I did do Ubers once, and I found a Druid torch, but unfortunately a Druid torch just doesn't cut it when you are a Warlock. Then I also have my 1915-7 Annie here. So you get a lot of resistances from your torch and Annie, and then your Obsession, and that opens up the rest of your stash for basically magic find, or your inventory, not your stash, for magic find charms. And I'm just making up a bit of resistances with some of the other charms, but it's basically unnecessary. And if you look, my resistances aren't capped. That's because when we respect, I am going to put an in my Ars Dul Mephistos, so that will bring all of these up to being capped with very minimal resistances going into your inventory. So you can run full skillers for damage and full MF, and you should be at capped resistance and very strong. So that's how this whole combination of gear comes together to allow you to have more flexibility with your charms and get a bit more MF and get super tanky while still having more than enough damage to do all content, even players 8, very, very easily and effectively. So I've gone over what I think is best in slot and the optimal configuration here for your gear. Obsession just allows us to run that optimal setup like I have mentioned. And I think what we're going to do now is we'll quickly go to Act 1 and we will hit that Re-Spec button, and then we'll go through respecking together. So we'll first go through the stats and then we will go through our skill points. So now that we've had a look at the gear, and unfortunately my cursed demon has now passed on to the hull, if you could call it that, because we respect and I don't have points into Bind Demon anymore. RIP Demon. So looking at the stats, just with my gear, you can see all my gears equipped when I respect right now, because we have our Torch and our Annie, which respectively give us 19 and 18 attributes. So we have 37 attributes just from there, plus the 15 strength that your Warlock starts with. As you can see, it's a base of 15. That would give us 52 strength if my maths is correct there. Is it 37, 15, 52? I think so. 52 strength, which means you just need to make up another 3 strength, which you can either put in a charm, or my ring has some strength on it here. And that allows us, very importantly, to have all of our gear equipped. Our highest strength requirement in terms of our gear is Gore Riders at 94% strength. And that allows us to put all of our points into Vitality, which sums up our stat attribute, our stat distribution here. And if we just put all of our points into Vitality, you can see unbuffed without anything else, we are sitting at 2,423 life, which is a massive fat life pool, which is more than my life pool was before, when I wasn't respect and I had all of those points into strength. And you can gain extra damage by putting points into strength. Basically, every point of strength relates to 1% enhanced damage. So at the moment we'd be at 140% enhanced damage, and if you put more points into strength, that would be more. Now, the one thing that Echoing Strike doesn't need is extra damage. It does so much damage. I'll go back to that sort of reference again where Mr. Armor went on Hull Players 8 with Wurt's leg and no other gear and could kill monsters in Hull using Echoing Strike and Wurt's leg. So you basically want to get as much utility and stats as you can on Echoing Strike, with damage kind of being a secondary thought. That's why there's so much versatility in terms of weapons and options in weapons, is because it really doesn't actually matter what you equip. If I look in the comments of some of my previous videos, people are using a Heart of the Oak flail with Echoing Strike and doing all content. They are using a Spirit Crystal Sword and doing all content. You can basically put in anything, and with that in mind, Obsession again comes in as the best all-rounder, having fair enough damage in an Eth base and providing all of the skills and useful stats. Stats are more important than raw damage for this build. I mean, there's some people who are getting 300, 400k sheet damage with Echoing Strike, but when you are one-shotting monsters anyway, what does all that extra damage do for you? Nothing. And that is the point of this ultimate guide, is to show you that there are certain stats and aspects of this build that are more important than just a big sheet damage number and just laying waste to enemies over and above overkill excessively. So that is our stats. We have got 549 points into Vite at level 93, and we can now move on to our skill tree. Now, there's been a lot of talking in this video already, and just to pause and ask you guys quickly, if you do like this content and you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. That would really help out the channel, and any views, shares, likes, all of that good stuff is always greatly appreciated. And let's move on to the skill tree and get right into that now. So for the skill tree at level 93, we have 104 points that we can put into our skills, or 104 skills that we can put in, not points, whatever you want to call it. So the chaos tree is very simple, and Sigil Lethargy is a 1-point wonder, so we're going to put 1 point in Sigil Lethargy. Now, this allows us to do greater damage because of its damage taken percentage there, which basically minuses, how it works is minusing physical resistance from your target. And that is great for bosses, it is great for massive mobs or heralds or any of those big tanky, high threat targets. So 1 point into Sigil Lethargy, I think, is almost it's almost part of every Warlock build, because it's just such a powerful tool, and with all our plus to skills, it really becomes a 1-point wonder. So in the chaos tree, that is all we're going to do, 1 into Sigil Lethargy. Then in the Eldritch tree, this is where we get our Echoing Strike. So what we are going to do here is 1 into Levitation Mastery, 1 into Echoing Strike. We do need to get to Mirrored Blades, which means we'll go through Cleave, Psychic Ward, Eldritch Blast, we'll do Blade Warp, and Mirrored Blades. So Psychic Ward is also a great 1-point wonder, because even with 1 point into it, we can absorb 255 damage, and that is all damage types. So whether it's elemental or it's magic damage or physical damage, we at least get a shield which can absorb 10% of our life pool just with 1 point into it. So that is in conjunction with all of our plus to skills. So Psychic Ward is a really great 1-point wonder that I use as an extra defensive layer and buff as well. So looking at our Eldritch tree, Echoing Strike gains bonuses and synergy from Mirrored Blades and Blade Warp, and what we're going to do is put 20 points into Echoing Strike to max that out. We are then going to do Blade Warp, 20 points, and then lastly Mirrored Blades, 20 points. So now we can look and see that our Echoing Strike is maxed out, and that is, with our current gear setup, 41 in terms of its skill level. And some other people might think, okay, now you're going to max out Levitation Mastery, or you're going to max out your hexes. And I'm going to say no, and I'll tell you why. So firstly, that offhand enhanced damage that you get from more points into Levitation Mastery is already in a big damage bucket to add to your weapon and overall damage. So that percent damage that you get from more points into Levitation Mastery is really a small drop in the ocean or drop in the pond in terms of its actual value and input into your overall damage. And your critical strike chance, as you can see, with 1 point into Levitation Mastery with all of your additional plus skills, is already maxed out. So the critical strike chance won't go up any higher with more base points, which means we only need 1 point into it, in addition with all of our skill points, to get what we need, the value that we need out of Levitation Mastery. If you really want to absolutely go wild with your damage, this build guide isn't for you, and in that case you would max out Levitation Mastery, but it really is unnecessary, so 1 point is all you need. Then it also puts down our weapon requirements, which is great, but also with this no strength build that we are going for at the moment, it isn't really a stat of any consequence or use to us. So 1 point into Levitation Mastery is all we need to get the Echoing Strikes and the rest of it. So looking at our hexes, lots of people tell you max hex bane or max hex purge or even 1 point into siphon is great. Now, I think at this level, when you are min-maxing your character and you're going for that end game all-round ultimate build, these hexes really provide such little damage compared to the damage you are already doing. And I think they are a bit of waste of your time, a waste of your skill points, and personally I think Hex Bane slightly outdoes Hex Purge, and if you want to eke out the last ounce of damage on your build, maxing out Hex Bane would be an option. Also, having that extra magic damage or minus enemy magic resistance from Ars Dul Mephistos could give you a little extra damage there, but it's really unnecessary and unimportant. So why I put 1 point, and again this is another 1 point wonder, why I put 1 point into Hex Bane is not for the extra damage it will give you, but it's for that minus 25% to enemy attack rating as well as to enemy defense, which will help your merc and anything else hitting those enemies. So it's more for that debuff that it applies to enemies than the actual damage, and that is why I will put 1 point into Hex Bane and nothing more. So that is it for the Eldritch tree, and the last tree, which is sort of the really fruity and exciting tree, is the Demon tree. Now, as a base, you got to put 1 point into everything. That is how the Warlock works with the Demon tree, at least for most builds, is just 1 point into everything so that you can get to Bind Demon and Consume, which are very important skills for the Warlock. Now, what we are going to want to do here, there are a few broken skills, not two, there are a few broken skills within the Demon tree. The first one being Bind Demon, and you only need 1 point into Bind Demon to have an absolute powerhouse of a ad or a pet for your Warlock. It is just so strong with 1 point. You don't have to look at anything more into Bind Demon. It is hellishly strong as it is just with 1 point. Now, what can we do with our remaining skill points here? The first thing that I'm going to tell you to do is max out your Blood Oath after you have put enough into Demonic Mastery to get it to level 20. So level 20 Demonic Mastery allows us to have 3 demons, which means we can have our Bind or Bound Demon, which we will always have because it is just so incredibly powerful, as well as the auras it gives you and everything like that. You have to have 1 Bound Demon. Then, alongside your Bound Demon, you can either run 2 Defilers or run 1 Defiler and 1 Consumed Summon Goatman, which will give you a little bit extra enhanced damage when you consume them. So it's kind of up to you. I've tested both, and I think they're both much of a muchness. I would maybe say that having 2 Defilers is slightly better, but it's not the be-all, end-all. You can either choose between a Consumed Goatman and a single Defiler, or a double Defiler and no Consumed Goatman, but either way you're having your Bound Demon and 2 other demons that you summon. So we have 17 points into Demonic Mastery. When we take into account our Call to Arms and all of that, what I'm going to do for this point in time is just put 3 points into Demonic Mastery, and this again comes from having all those extra skill points from Obsession, from our Harlequin Crest Shaker, Enigma, Ars Dul Mephistos, High Lords, Arachnid Mesh, all of that stuff, our Torch, our Annie. That gives us all of those extra points so that we only need to put a few into Demonic Mastery, and the rest we can go into these other magical skills that just make us incredibly tough and impossible to kill, basically. So I'm just going to put 3 in there to get to 20. I'm not going to count my Call to Arms +1 to skill and weapon swapping and this and that. I'm just going to put 3 points into here. So that gives us our base of 4 points and gives us 20 overall, which, as you can see, gives us a max of 3 demons. Now, where the remaining 25 skill points are going to go is firstly into Blood Oath. So as you can see already with our plus to skills with 1 point into Blood Oath, our physical damage that is taken goes to our demon. 37% of it. Let me reword that quickly. 30% of our damage taken goes to our demon with our plus skills into this particular skill of Blood Oath. So if we put our remaining points into Blood Oath as shown here, you can see we get to an incredibly high amount of damage taken goes to our demon. So 75% of the damage that would come to us now gets transferred to our unstoppable bound demon that already they are impossible to kill. So it really doesn't matter that 75% of our damage is taken and going to our demon. So that is how we become basically unkillable. And the rest of the points, what I'm going to put it into, you could put it into demonic mastery if you choose to not consume your Goatman. I'm going to run consume Goatman in order to get out a little bit of extra damage, and also just to get the extra life and the run walk and all of that you get from this consume skill. So the rest of my points are going into consume so that I get more max life and more faster run walk and that little bit of extra damage. So for instance, if you had to take off obsession, so what do I have in the other offhand there? I'm just going to quickly take off obsession and put it in my stash here. Those 4 extra points from obsession would give you about, or it would minus about 8% in damage reduction just using, let's say, one of those other weapons that doesn't have all skills. So if you have a Fortitude, or if you have a Breath of the Dying, or Ariox, actually Ariox has the skills, so scrap that, a Breath of the Dying or a Fortitude or whatever else like that, maybe a Tomb Reaver, you're missing out on a massive percent of damage. You're missing out on more survivability from your consume. Your demon isn't as strong, your lethargy isn't as impactful, all of your bane isn't as good as it should be. All of these skills that bonus and get extra utility out of having obsession are just, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words a bit there. Let me just rephrase that and tell you what I'm trying to say here. The utility provided by obsession and those +4 to skills has such a great impact on all of these 1-point wonders and these skills that accompany the build and support it in so many ways, such as Blood Oath, such as Consume, such as Demonic Mastery, the consuming of your Goatman, the Summon Defiler, your Bound Demon. All of that is so greatly impacted by your plus skills, and that is one of the reasons why Obsession, again, is best in slot in my opinion for this build. It just provides so much in terms of its utility, its skills, its stats. It is just so incredible for this build, and your kill speed is spectacular, phenomenal as well. So what I'm going to do now is we're quickly going to get into rolling our call to arms and just summing up everything that we have been going through for this Echoing Strike build so far. So I'm just going to exit here so that I can make a normal game and do my socket in that Ars Dul Mephistos, and then we can quickly move on and do that call to arms together. I have to tell you, I have never rolled a good call to arms, literally never. They've always been so low rolled that I really pray and hope that today's call to arms roll is going to be a 662, something like that would be really great, because like I said, I just have never had luck with that in the past. There we go, Larzik threw my tome on the floor, that bastard. Let's quickly put in our ruin. I'm ruined, so we get 22 resist in our shield. So now if we have a look at our resists, they are overcapped greatly, and we are an absolute brick shithouse tank. So we've got our armor in there. It just makes our Ars Dul Mephistos look so much cooler. And let's quickly roll that CTA. So I've got a 5-socketed crystal sword here. Let's go crystal sword. I'm just going to put that Eldritch skiller there so long. Then our runes, we have Arm, Roll, Mal, Ist, Ohm. 5 sockets. Let's do it. Arm, Roll. I have to say, it always scares me when these runes go into these random corners of the socketing and you think, oh, did it go in the right order? Mal, Ist. Here we go, that beautiful Ohm rune. Call to arms. 2, 5, 3. So I think the best it can roll is a 664. 664 I think is the max roll for that. We can quickly check on our Chronicle here. Rune words. Call to arms. So we can roll 666. So I rolled a 253. So out of a potential 18 you could get, I got 10. So a little over half. Anyway, 5 to battle orders is what counts the most out of all of this. The other stats are basically irrelevant. So 5 out of 6 from a 2 to 6 roll. I'm pretty happy with that. To be honest, this is the best call to arms I have ever rolled. So there we go. I'm quickly going to put this back in my stash. And there we go, we have a call to arms. So, quickly to end off here, I hope that you guys have found this video insightful. We'll quickly go over buffing the character up and what all the stats look like. But just to give you a bit of an overview on what the whole purpose of this video is and was. Now, you can go for max damage, and that seems to be everyone's priority, is just what is the biggest number I can get on my stat sheet and how much damage can I do, how quickly can I kill a fallen. All of that is very great and well, but there's so much more to the Echoing Strike Warlock than just that damage output. Through the skills, the broken skills that we have, such as Bound Demon and Blood Oath and all of those incredible skills, we are able to make a character that can jump into the middle of Ubers and not take any damage while outputting an absolute shit ton of damage itself. And you don't need the damage numbers that everyone seems to be going after in order to achieve a really powerful character with Echoing Strike. And this, in my opinion, you have such a balance between Magic Find. As you can see, we have 277 Magic Find. You're hitting that sort of 300% sweet spot that I think is a really sweet spot. Anywhere between 300 and 500% is absolutely where you want to be, accompanied by extremely fast clearing of maps. Now, we had 277 Magic Find. We are at the 90% faster hit recovery breakpoint. We are at the 125% faster cast rate breakpoint. We have fully capped resistances that are overcapped, and we can even optimize further with Magic Find and everything else in our inventory. We have an incredible amount of life that I'll show you how much that will go up now once we buff ourselves up. We have Leech, we have Sustain, we have every little nook and cranny and aspect of this character covered. We have damage reduction from our Shaker and our Enigma. We have 50% deadly strike from our High Lords and our Gore Riders. We are just so well sorted in the setup that I think very few setups of Echoing Strike will be able to match the efficiency as well as the tankiness and just the all-round ability that this particular ultimate endgame setup of Echoing Strike is. And I would love to hear your comments below what you think the ultimate setup is. But for me, having such easily capped resistances damage reduction, faster cast rate, clear speed, all of that stuff. You can't beat the setup, in my opinion. And if you just do those changes, like I mentioned, adding in a Bull Kathos ring, getting in a 30% faster cast rate, Ars Dul Mephistos, it's just incredible. So I'm quickly going to buff up with my Hexbane. I'm going to put on my Psychic Ward. Then I'm going to summon a Defiler, summon a Goatman and consume it. And what's next? We would need a Bound Demon, but we don't have one of those. So life is sitting at 2,900 life there. And I'm quickly going to go to... I should have actually first done my call to arms, which I forgot to do. But let me just do that quickly. So I switched over. Call to arms. So first battle command to get that extra skill. Battle command, then battle orders. Get that extra life. Then I'm going to switch back. I'm then going to buff up, like I mentioned. First you should use your call to arms and then buff, like I've been saying. So I don't have a Bound Demon, which with the curse would make us do an incredible amount of damage. So with the amp damage curse, you're basically doing damage double what you have. But anyway, my life is 4,250. My damage is 41k. That is basically double through Deadly Strike. On top of then the amp damage as well. You're just doing such an incredible amount of damage. You are so tanky. Let's quickly do a tiny bit of gameplay just to show you what's going on here. So, I mean, one-shotting. I mean, I did 2 shots, they were unnecessary. This is just... We'll go quickly to the Terror Zone at Nilithak just now as well. But you are absolutely one-shotting anything you come in contact with. And we'll quickly just dive into the middle of the pack as well. You also are unkillable, essentially. We don't have a Bind Demon, so we'll bind one of these guys quickly. We'll just go find a Venom Lord. Here's some Venom Lords. Let's see if we can get that guy. There, we bound that Venom Lord. And now our damage is going to be shared with that Venom Lord. And we are going to take no damage at all, basically. Let's quickly pop the seal down here. Well, let's jump into the middle of this pack. Look, I'm not touching a thing, and we can stand in the middle of this pack. And basically, they are all dying around us from our merc, and nothing bad is happening. And then let off a couple shots ourselves. It is incredible how tanky this build is, and I think that as a hardcore option and alternative, it is also incredibly viable and a very good choice if you are looking to play hardcore, because there's going to be very little that can take you out in any sort of surprises. You'll be able to play very comfortably in hardcore with very little surprises. Unless a massive lag or disconnect kills you, you should be A4 away. And look at that teleport speed. You are just zooming around the map. Yes, this is only Players 1 at the moment, and I can assure you that on Players 8 it feels just as powerful as it does right here. And this build is busted. If we have to end on anything, I'd have to say that this build is truly too powerful. With that, I mean, here's Diablo, 3 shots, done. So we are sitting at around 50k damage there with that aura from our demon. Now, one thing I forgot to mention that I just realized right now, whilst we are running in this Terror Zone, I'll just let you in on that. For our merc, some of the damage that we are missing, if you could even call it that, would be from using an Eth Pride polearm on our merc. So at the moment I just have an Eth Insight on my merc, and ultimately an Eth Pride will give you a massive boost to damage. So like I mentioned, without this Fanaticism aura right now, we are probably on about 40k damage with Obsession. And if we had to put on Pride on our Mercenary, we'd probably move up to the mid-50s or so for damage from that concentration aura that Pride provides. So a Pride polearm on an Act 2 Mercenary with that Might aura that already comes on our Act 2 Mercenary inherently would boost your damage quite significantly. And I think maybe an Eth Endarials for the Helm and a Eth Fortitude for the armor, as well as that Pride polearm, will be your best in slot for your Merc. So my buffs have dropped off. I still need to configure the hotkeys for all of those, but that is basically it. If we look at my Merc at the moment, he's just running a Vamp Gaze, a Eth Treachery, and a Wormhide armor, and then an Insight, an Eth Insight, not even a greatly rolled Insight. But that is going to do it for us and wrap up this probably very long video, and I apologize for the length of this, but I just hope that it put some of my ideas and ideals into perspective for this particular build. I think I was chatting to a friend earlier, and we were basically saying what level of toughness is tough enough, and he said if you can telestomp into a pack of T5 Heralds and survive, I think that's tough enough. And I think that is exactly what this character can do. You can dive into a T5 Herald on players 8 and start letting off your echoing strikes and just being invincible. So you have more than enough damage, absolutely ample damage with your Eth Archonstaff Obsession. You have survivability that is unmatched, having 4,200 life, as well as capped resistances and damage reduction, and damage going to your demon of 75% that you are taking going to your demon. It is absolutely mind-blowing what this build is capable of, and I think this variation of this build is as good as you are going to get for all content that D2R currently offers. And on that note, I'd like to thank you for sticking around for this very long video, and I really hope you found it insightful. Any questions, comments, any of that good stuff, please leave it down below, and we'll catch you again very soon after you've subscribed for some more Mana and Motherboards. Cheers!